Hey, it's Travis. Too many camp directors run just on gut feel. Our free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic is your dashboard for resilience. Take it today at camp.mba/Travis. Again, that's camp.mba/Travis. When you think about how your camp runs, what is the value of someone whose specific job is to think about operations?
This is CampHacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
This episode of the CampHacker podcast is brought to you by UltraCamp. Wouldn't it be refreshing if your registration software gave you more time? With UltraCamp, you can track attendance, manage staff applications, streamline registration, and much more. Get back the time you need to focus on what's really important, camp. Find out more at summercampsoftware.com/camphacker.
Hello, Camp Pros, and welcome to the CampHacker podcast brought to you by UltraCamp. My name is Travis Allison. I am a summer camp marketing consultant and founder of the Summer Camp Professionals Group, and I am excited to be here with you today.
I'm Abigail Stuart. I'm the Director of Operations at Doxazo Ministries, a local nonprofit in Topeka, Kansas that runs summer camps for youth.
And I am Ari Polsky. I am a marketing, fundraising, and data analysis consultant in the camp industry and have been working with camps for the past decade.
Wonderful. I'm so grateful to have you both here. Thank you. We are here today because the two of you, I guess, had been chatting and proposed this idea. And I was like, yes, this is such a great topic for us to think about. What does it mean to consider operations? I think that especially in smaller organizations, the role of operations is kind of pulled into a lot of people's pieces of a lot of people's jobs. And I think it's great to think about it as a complete thing. And what are some of the stuff that we have to think about to get it going? Abby, how did the discussion start? What got you both thinking about this?
So Ari had proposed the question in the Slack, and immediately it was one that caught my eye just because my role involves a lot of operations. So I do it for our nonprofit and then for camp specifically. Like you said, we're small. So the operations and the programs falls into my category. And so it was a conversation I was curious about because I just didn't see people like me at camp growing up. And I want more kids growing up to see like, oh, there's a space for everyone at camp, not just your extroverted frontline people.
Yeah, totally. I love that. Ari, how would you define the role, or what sort of stuff would fit into this to your mind?
I think operations and logistics really is someone who can take a step back and look at everything that is happening, both within your physical site over the summer and knowing your whole broad community and everything else that is involved in camp, and can look at it and say, what are the systems that we need to make all of our rhythms and operations and practices smoother? How do we make what we do better?
Would you add stuff onto that from your specific role, Abby?
I think that encompasses it perfectly. Like just someone who's able to see the big picture. I think the only thing I would add is someone who's also able to see ahead, looks at where we are and then can look ahead, because it can be hard for programs people to do that. And so it kind of balances it both, Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the idea of, first of all, systems thinking, that you're looking at how can we either create systems or improve systems every day, which I think a lot of camps are definitely stressed out about money and human resources and all of those things. And this is a position that can support that and give some more space for people to do the mission-focused front. Not that this job is not mission-focused, but meaning those that are looking after kids or looking after staff directly. And I think it's such a well thought out position that some organizations create somebody and recruit and find some people. And I love the idea, Abby, that there are people for whom, being the yelly, screamy, singy types is not always that comfortable. I know lots of people camp people that do that, but it's not their favorite part of the camp role, that they're, looking to smooth out edges and make things run better, just because it facilitates that stuff for camps. If you were hiring somebody for your job, Abby, what would you look for in a person?
I'd definitely be looking for someone who is detail oriented. So someone who thinks through processes and is able to identify what are potential like marks in the road that they want to be specifically making sure they planned for. So I think detail oriented would be really high up there for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts or things you would want to look for, Ari?
Yeah, I would add to that. I first off totally agree. And yes, I want someone detail oriented. And I would add that I would look for someone who is asking the right questions, even if they don't have the answers.
Yes.
They're thinking through all of the different components and playing the game of what if, 2, 4, 6, 12 moves ahead on the chessboard.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is so crucial, because if you're, often it's really easy to get focused in like, well, this is what we've always done. But a really good operations person looks at, okay, what's good about what we've always done? What's working for us? Let's keep doing that. But also looks at what's not working for us and how can we make this better in the easiest and most effective way possible.
Yeah, it's amazing. You talk about being detail oriented, but I also think, and I'm not totally contradicting that, but it's just another side of this is that I was the operations person in our organization, and I'm not particularly detailed operated, but I love systems. And so I build systems around me to account for the fact that I have a very short attention span and can get drawn and pulled in lots of different directions. And so I think if you're willing to work within the systems, you can balance out that. Some people are able to be much more focused and much more detail oriented. So I love that, and I totally agree. But I don't want people to be listening and think, well, then that automatically, that automatically writes me off, and maybe I don't have a place at camp. If I don't like to be the happy, yelly, screaming ones.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I mean, I think that's something else I'd throw out there. A lot of the things that would make a good operations person are learned skills. My amount of organization and detailed management has grown so much since when I first started this job. And a lot of it is actually, Travis, because of what you said, systems, things that keep you on track. And when you get off track, because it happens to all of us.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Travis, something that you said really stuck with me here was that you are a systems person, but not necessarily detail. And one of the things that I think we are really great at in the camp industry is writing job descriptions for the mission-based side and for the programmatic people, and basing their portfolio around what it is that they do. And we struggle to do the same thing, I think, with our business and operations side. And I think giving it that same level of intentionality and treatment would really benefit the industry as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, and I think we all know the answer to this, but do you think as an industry, we invest in the operations side and the systems staff enough? What do you think, Ari?
I think that we can always be doing a better job at that, and that there's definitely room for growth in this industry to really think critically about how we are raising the next generation of logistics and operations staff. Not just the people who are shining on stage, but the person who's standing backstage with the clipboard and the earpiece and checking off acts as they go on. Like, that's the type of person that we're looking for here too. And we need both of those to keep the show running.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How, Abby, do you think a camp could invest in that better or more?
Specifically speaking to like an operations logistics person?
Yeah, how do you train people? How do we invest in the people to get more of those skills to come to the forefront? I think it's I think most camp people would understand that we are great at investing in camper care and, all the people stuff. And a lot of us that get into this business year round, as we've all kind of alluded to, tend to be people who are either like super focused on campers Or I think also the other side of that tends to be people who love just training and staff and young adults and getting all that. But then we have this big piece of, we've often given the advice on the show that if you want to have a marketable camp skill, learn Excel. Like, figure out Excel and spreadsheets. Where can people find the training? Where can they learn this stuff?
I think I look at this specifically as like a nonprofit realm, just because that's my world. But whenever I go to conferences and stuff, I'm always looking to optimize those opportunities. So specifically picking sessions that will enhance my operations side. When I do continuing ed on my own, looking at where are the areas I need to grow in and looking just like learning more about those areas themselves. I think something else like smaller people and organizations can do is maybe look at outsourcing. Maybe I'm not a finance person. So on my team, I kind of outsource as much of that as I can to someone who's good at that. So are these volunteers around that could help with that? So those are some of the things that I've looked at when it looks like what are systems you can put in place for your operations.
Others that you can think of, Ari?
Yeah, I would just add to this that there's a lot of free or low-cost Excel trainings that exist on the internet. I would just throw a quick plug in here for Miss Excel on Instagram, who does a lot of really fun dance videos while showing you cool formulas that you may have never even thought to use that will speed up your processes. And it's not just about Excel. I would add that it's really thinking about how can you take on small chunks that are actionable steps to make what you do better at camp. And one of the ones that I would recommend here, I learned from my mentor, Rabbi Eliav Bach at Ramon the Rockies, the idea of a start, stop, and continue spreadsheet. And you get your senior staff together. They all have access to this Google Sheet. And you have a column for things that you want to start doing, things you want to stop doing, things that you want to continue doing. You can divide it up by categories and put in copious amount of notes, however much you want to put into this. And then you come up with a plan to review this at least, at one point during the summer as you're gathering it all and seeing what changes you can make now. And then maybe again in the fall and look at what changes you're going to make during the year for the following summer. And that is one concrete process that you can go through that will help you think in a systems-like manner.
Yeah. I would add that there are lots of inexpensive online resources around Lean. I've talked on CampHacker lots of times about Lean being a system that's worth investing in because it gives you the mindset that you're constantly looking for waste. And that's such a different way of looking at things. Like, oh, people are just standing around here bored. Like that's wasted human resources. Or, somebody is spending a lot of time, I don't know, updating an ancient website that they have to put stuff in code. Like that's waste. And so once you get that in mind, when you think about building a lean organization, that you start to see those things in lots of different places. There's lots of great training. Some of it's super fancy and super expensive, like Six Sigma stuff that if you can afford it, great. But if you look at stuff like this guy named Paul Akers, who runs a company that makes stuff for cabinet makers, and he has a book called 2 Second Lean, and he has some a whole bunch of stuff on YouTube that I will preface it by saying Paul is a pretty old-fashioned person. So I find that some of his language is not very sensitive, but his way he's thinking works. If you can get past those weird moments, it's free. All of his books are free and really cool ideas. Ari, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I would just add here another process that I think will help camps, especially ones that might not have a dedicated operations person, is writing down what do you do throughout the year. It's such a simple task, but creating a calendar of when do you order your camp shirts? When do you have to print your brochures every year? When do you have to do whatever task? You have to order your stage lights for your amphitheater during the summer. Whatever it is, come up with a calendar and really look at, did we do this at the right time last year? Is there a better time to be doing these processes at next year?
Mm-hmm.
I like that that's so practical and people can picture that at camp. Is there any other of those sort of practical pieces of advice, Abby, that you would give to somebody who this is part of their job or this is their job?
Yeah, I think something else that would be practical, as much as you can create on a shared file is also helpful for us. So like everything I do when I plan and I document, like that's something the other people on the team can see. And so I think something else to consider is like, are there other people who can be doing your job with you, And so it's not just always on you. And then like also they're catching you too. So like Ari, you were saying with the stage lights, maybe someone's like, that actually didn't come in on the right time. And so you guys can dialogue about those things. So I think something else super simple is just collaboration as much as possible. Like it makes a world of difference at the end, the closer you get to camp, if more people know what's going on and can pitch in when things are maybe going really well or not going really well.
Totally. My favorite pre-summer meeting that I know drove many others wild, they did not love this, was the pre-summer checklist meeting. And this was a Google spreadsheet with probably 150 tasks on it that had everything from ordering the t-shirts to making sure that all of the year-round office supplies were packed up and brought up to the summer office. Everything and anything, and it had different people assigned to it. And we would go through task by task in this meeting and say, are these same people the right people to be responsible for this? Should this be delegated somewhere else? Is this even the right timeline to be operating on? And very similar to what I said earlier, just thinking in that way will help create that practice for your organization.
Mm-hmm. And even to add to that, I mean, as much as we love camp, we might not be in our roles for forever. And so if we don't write this stuff down, like that poor next person is going to have such a bigger learning curve because they don't know what to do or when they should be doing it. And so documenting is something that's not only going to help you now, but it's going to be helping your camp a lot in the long run.
Abby, that is my dream one day, is to be able to bring someone in who will sit back, watch, and document everything that happens at camp.
Yeah.
And
I love it.
To just like create a manual for opening day procedures, to create a manual for color war, to create a manual for everything that you do. And that's another great tool that you could take on is just pick one specific thing that needs a manual. Have someone, it could be one of your alumni who wants to come up for the day or a few days and volunteer, and have them observe everything, write down everything, and create a document about how do we open camp? How do we close camp? How do we run visitors day? How do we fill in the blank? You can decide what's useful for you, but really thinking about what is that one piece that will make a world of difference for you to have an operations manual for.
Mm-hmm. Something I love about bringing someone in from the outside is just their perspective. So I think for me, it's really easy to get into the mode like, oh, this works. And it's not until a staff member points out, well, why do you do it that way? That I'm like, oh, maybe this works for me, but this isn't working for camp. And so I love the idea of like an outside perspective can be someone who can be like, hey, this is great. Keep going with that. Or like, you know what, this actually doesn't really make sense. And they can help you kind of problem solve what would make sense.
Even simply front loading with a friend or family member who's coming to camp for the first time, or to camp, or an alumni that that's coming to camp for the first time in a long time, just flat out saying to them, look, we're in the thick of things. Could you just look around when you come in, take some notes? If I have alumni who come back, haven't been at camp in 10 years, then that is something I would say to them every time. It's like, I need your skills, your eyes on this to just say what looks messy, what looks dirty, what looks like it's a bad first impression. And that's how things like dumpsters get fences around them, and workshop yards get fences in front of them with good signs on them, because people come in and are like, the first thing we see, and you turn around the corner, you're expecting to see program, and what you see is the shop yard, and it's full of overturned lawnmowers and all of those things. You're like, right, perfect.
Yeah, that's so smart. I love it.
I think one of the other interesting things about taking notes, recording this stuff, and having it there, obviously it is some form of future proofing, or there's a better word that you're just thinking about the future of camp and you're getting that there. But I think it's also just one of those good camp things. We're so good at camp at teaching kids things. And sometimes, for very good reasons, we're so focused on the kids' experience that we're forgetting what it means when someone becomes a counselor or a leader in training. Like, what we teach them is all just kid stuff, where we could be teaching operations. So if we're recording stuff or having somebody record it, some camps, will have a shadow day for someone who's a leader in training, and they get to follow people around, and they could be that recorder or the person behind you who's like, no, and asking questions. But that's all part of the teaching. Like we're teaching people that camp takes more to run than what is seen on the surface. And camps that run well are really intentional about that stuff too. Really intentional about the kids' experience, but we're really intentional about all of the pieces to this.
I love what you said, Travis. I actually just wrote down Shadow Day because that's a new one I haven't heard, and I love that idea. One of my favorite programs to run during staff week at camp is called The Business of Camp, where we lift the veil, we explain what it is that we spend all year doing, and what are all of the different projects that we work on, and how do we make this experience happen. Then we ask staff to reflect on what's something that surprised you, what's something that made you uncomfortable that you learned, what is something that you did not know that you do now, what's something that you wish you saw. And we get them to talk about, what does it take to run an organization? What does it take to make this experience happen and I know that Travis doesn't necessarily like the word magic for the external camp population, but what does it take to make the magic of camp happen for everybody who is within the bubble of camp?
Yeah.
I think something cool too with just this whole conversation is like a lot of the skills we're talking about are transferable skills.
Yes.
And things,
the resume skills for sure.
Oh yeah. It's like, just learning some of the stuff, it's going to make you like really successful outside of camp too.
We're recording this in fall of 2021, and when we're recording this, there is a massive logistics problem across the whole world right now. And I've heard read so many pieces and heard some podcast interviews outside of the camp industry where people are talking about what we need is logistics and systems people to solve current problems. But for camp, it's the same. Like, we can teach. That's yet another transferable camp skill to pass on. If you both think about visiting other camps or getting to a new camp and looking around, what are some of the simplest operational things that you think camps could do better that are kind of blind? They could become blind to it, or what are some of the things that you think are worth looking at?
I would start by looking at what are the things that happen every year, every summer, whether it is your color war or other special days, and creating shopping lists for those days that are backed up far enough to overcome any supply and logistical challenge that we might be experiencing in the world right now, or any at all. And so that if your two teams are green and yellow, that you have ample green and yellow paint and paper and whatever else you need beforehand, and that you're not scrambling, running out for it the day beforehand. So that it's a perpetual order that you place before you even leave for the summer. You put it in on May 1 to be delivered on, let's say your color war is June 30th, that it's arriving June 25th. And that you have all of those things ready to go, lined up, that that you will need throughout the summer. That would be one of my first pieces.
That's pretty close to what I was going to say too. Shout out to Stomping Ground for introducing the concept, but looking at your hidden curriculum What are those things that are just super intuitive to you, and how can you make those more transparent to those listening in? That's something I've been trying to work on a lot, just because I inherited a camp with traditions. And so I remember getting there that first summer. I was like, why is everybody running around singing this song? Like, what's going on? And I think that is something that's so important from an operations side, not only for like the supplies issue, like you were saying, Ari, but also just like, how can we communicate this to people? How can we onboard people better so people aren't surprised when, traditions happen and stuff like that?
Abby, you remind me of something I've seen from another director, which was a guide for international staff on what to expect when they got to camp, and what are all these traditions? What do they look like? And why do they even happen? And it was just a really short explainer that helped bring people into the fold that might not have any clue what's happening around them. And I think as soon as we prepare people for what's going to happen, they are better able to support the systems of what is happening.
And get comfortable faster. I think something as simple as a camp dictionary when you get hired, if you haven't grown up at that camp, or you change your roles from camper to staff, that there is, that's definitely hidden curriculum. Like, it's just the camp slang and the camp dictionary. Like, all of that stuff makes people fit in and feel more comfortable faster.
The company traditions 101.
Yeah, totally. I think two things that come up for me. One is some form of very visual inventory management, where it's not like a deep dark closet full of the doors just stuffed full of costumes and nuts and bolts and and 17 different kinds of balls, but it's just very visual and it's organized and it's easy for people to put stuff back. And I think just in terms of operational stuff, and this doesn't happen at every camp, but there is there's so many small camps that I bet this happens a lot than more people think, is something as simple as having tools that are just for program, so that people aren't going into the shed or the shop to get something for very valid reasons. The program director needs to build an arbor for, an announcement. All those things are very valid, but if those things are separate, then when you have mission critical things like you need maintenance staff to solve a problem, their tools are where they are. And I got to the point that I had my own separate toolbox. We had program toolbox, we had maintenance toolbox, and we had my toolbox, just because I wanted to be able to solve problems when I needed to do that. But that separation was enough that it just sort of keeps the temperature down amongst your staff when people are like, I really need the power tools and I don't know where they are.
Inventory management is huge. And I think that you bring up a really important topic, that many camps don't have enough storage space. It's as simple as that. And my dream always is to have shipping containers everywhere lined with shelving and clearly delineated whose shelves are what. And separate from that, if you aren't able to realize the dream of a shipping container, what I would look at are what are the small actionable things that you can create in little kits. So if you have a bunk that wants to do tie-dye, can you have the rubber bands, the gloves, all of the dye bottles all ready to go in a bag that you just hand off to someone and say, here's your tie-dye kit? How do you have a birthday kit ready for a bunk to celebrate at lunch for one of their bunkmates?
Yeah.
Is there an AV crate of here's the projector, a speaker, an XLR, and a microphone that you need for, to run whatever activity you're running?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love those kits. Two specific kits that we had that I haven't seen others people have. Well, one was, lots of people have this, the first one, but we had a system for it, was that any staff who was looking after kids were expected to have a first aid kit on them with sort of a minimum level. And we would get those kits have those kits ready at the beginning, give them for the summer, restock them at certain points, and you could either drop off a kit, pick up another one restocked, or if you brought your own, you could drop it in and get it restocked for you. But then you also went home with a kit that was full. And the other thing was, we call them opening day kits. So each unit had an opening day kit that had raccoon circles and, paper and crayons, and those would get restocked along the way. But it was, save counselors, again, going to an arts and crafts building and just rummaging through, like, I've got this really cool idea, I want to do it as an intro. And then the craft director's like, A, this place is a mess, and B, where are the things I need for the programs I had planned this week. It was just a way to counter some of those stresses. So much of this is about reducing stress. Reducing staff stress and keeping things rolling.
That is the crux of this whole conversation, I think, is right there, is how do we reduce stress for everybody at camp? And by investing in operations and logistics and systems, you will find yourself a more relaxed, or at least less stressed, camp professional. Yeah.
Any other thoughts or ideas around this that you really wanted to get across that we haven't covered yet, Abby?
I think, honestly, at the end of the day, what Ari said last is just, you can't underestimate that enough. Across the board, like, a healthier leadership team is going to lead to a healthier camp in the end, because that stuff just trickles down. And also, like, a better quality program is going to attract more campers, more staff, things like that. And so investing in these things, like, maybe it's going to cost a lot. Maybe, well, honestly, a lot of stuff doesn't cost a ton, but, there might be some investment, and that's fair to consider, but it's going to pay off. Like, it really will. It's going to pay off in a lot of really cool ways.
Right on. What do you think, Ari?
The last piece that I would add here for everyone is that you can potentially get more staff back by doing this that you might not get back otherwise, by creating this opportunity for them to gain business skills and gain real world skills. And even if you find a way to call it an internship, you might be able to get people coming back who you weren't going to otherwise. And so really thinking critically and creatively about how are you going to keep these people in the fold, and how are you going to raise up and retain your operations people will serve everybody in the long run.
Well, it goes back to what we just said, like, it just reduces the stress of everybody. And when camps are having a hard time hiring and retaining staff, that ability to just take the stress of the job down because you have good systems, because you've reduced wasted money. So people aren't, stressed about where we're going to find the money for this particular program at the end of the season, then, in a lot of ways, it's a camper retention piece, and it's a staff retention piece as well. You've got happier people who are not leaving completely exhausted and unhappy with the camp year at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you both. I appreciate it. It was a super smart discussion, and I'm grateful for you putting up your hands and saying it. This is a good time for me to say, if anybody else has ideas of things they want to talk about, I definitely look forward to more conversations with the two of you on topics that you come up with. But everybody's welcome to reach out to me and say, we have this cool idea. We don't think you've covered it enough. I love those kind of conversations, and I'm super grateful when people reach out. So thank you both.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
Of course. So I want to take a second right now and thank the sponsor of this CampHacker episode, UltraCamp. If you are a CampHacker listener, then UltraCamp has a deal just for you. It is the marketing toolbox, their 10 best marketing tools. You can get them by going to ultracampmanagement.com/CampHacker, and you can download it. It's totally free. It's called the Marketing Toolbox. And that really is a chance for you to do some of the stuff we're talking about. Create systems. They're giving you a tool to do that. And I think one of the things that UltraCamp really does help their clients do best is to help them get systems in place and get out of the office, get a chance to spend time with kids, get a chance to know your staff. And they know that you didn't get into this job just to do paperwork. Obviously, we're talking today about people for whom doing the paperwork that makes the machine run is important stuff. But UltraCamp knows that can be stressful for many people. And they've created the software to help camp professionals like yourselves handle camp registration quickly and efficiently. And with UltraCamp, you get unlimited custom reports, unlimited support, unlimited training, and unlimited users so they can help make those systems run too. UltraCamp's goal is to provide resources so their camp clients can spend more time at camp doing what they do best. If this doesn't sound like your camp registration software, don't you think it should? Visit their website at ultracampmanagement.com/CampHacker and set up a time to chat. They look forward to meeting with you. So then we will move ourselves on to our tool of the week.
Tool of the week.
I'm going to buy the two of you a little bit of time, and I'm going to start. I have a unusually inexpensive tool for a Travis tool, but it is a thing that I don't think enough camps do, and it's funny, it just kind of sits into systems and operations in such a good way today. It had to be my tool. My tool is Dawn Power Wash, which is a dishwashing detergent. But everybody knows that Dawn's famous for their ability to cut through grease and oils. And it is an amazing all-around cleaner. It can be used for some hardcore cleaning with stuff that has been left too long. And it is really not just for dishes. It's a great all-around cleaner that I think every camp should have on their shelf. And every little department should have their own bottle of this stuff because it's so good at efficiently cleaning and getting through really tough camp-like dirty problems. So my tool of the week is the Dawn Power Wash Platinum. And as usual, with all of our tools, you can go to camphacker.tv/podcast, find our show notes, where we'll have the notes from this. Abby, do you have a tool of the week?
Yeah, the book I just started reading is iGen, which is by Jean Twenge. And so far, it has been really enlightening, just looking at Gen Z, how they think, how they operate, what are their concerns. Gen Z still might be campers, depending on who you serve, but a lot of them are going to be your counselors if they aren't already. And for me, just understanding how this generation works, how I can serve them, how I should be interacting with them is something I want to get better at. So I'm super excited to continue diving deeper into that book.
That's amazing. Thank you, Abby. What do you got, Ari?
I have a book as well, but first I want to bring up something that you spoke about, or that we spoke about and you reminded me of during the conversation, and that is milk crates. I love milk crates. I use them for everything at camp. They store the projector kits I just spoke about. They store everything that you could ever need. They're in my car with jumper cables and water. I use milk crates everywhere all the time, and I highly encourage you to think about where can you use them around camp to make transportation and storage easier.
Amazing.
So that's my first one. The book that I'm reading right now is Bring Your Human to Work. It's by Erica Caswin, 10 Surefire Ways to Design a Workplace That's Good for People, Great for Business, and Just Might Change the World. And so far, what I really like about this book and what is, I would sort of describe it on one foot, is how do you bring your corporate values and your organization's values, not just to the mission-based activities of what it does, of what you do, but to your employment practices? And how do you think about your values affecting the way that you hire and retain and unfortunately sometimes let go of staff? And really thinking about how you support them in all of those ways. And shout out to my friends at the Gender Equity and Hiring Project who recommended this book to me.
That's awesome. That's really good. Ari, I was thinking maybe we could include with your tool of the week, what was the Instagram Excel?
Oh, Miss Excel. Yes. I think she's
Miss Excel.
Excel.
Okay. Right on. We can also make sure that goes into the show notes. That's awesome. Very cool. Well, I appreciate you both being on here. And as I said, I'm grateful that you suggested the topic, and once again, invite anybody to do that. We want to thank UltraCamp for sponsoring this episode of the CampHacker podcast. I want a special thank you to Matt Wilfred, who is our Executive Director of Podcasting and does so much to help the CampHacker show and all the rest of the Go Camp Pro podcasts. And I will say, if you want to get a hold of Ari or Abby, you can go to camphacker.tv/podcast and find out their contact information and how to follow up with them if you have any more questions. The last thing I wanted to do is take just a second to say, if you got something out of this show, please share this episode. That's the single best thing you can do to help us as a podcast to reach more people and to help the camp audience. If you know a friend who's struggling with some of these issues of, how to learn some of this operational stuff that is not specifically why they got into summer camp, or is new on their job because the world's changing, then screenshot this show and text it to a friend, or just share it from your podcast app. There's always a sharing option in those. This can really help us get episodes about specific issues out to the people who need them. So we appreciate you, our audience, for doing that. And thanks for the evening, friends.
The CampHacker podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening. CampHacker, bringing your world into focus.
Hey Camp Pros, we love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, we hope that whenever you share an idea that you learned from the CampHacker podcast, conference, summer camp professionals group, or wherever else, that you're quick to give credit where credit is due. That way, we can all encourage more camp pros to share the tips and tricks that will make camp better.
Hey, it's Travis. Camp directors often tell me they're just too tired to take on anything new. That's exactly why my free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic exists. It doesn't add work, it shows you progress. Quick, free, repeatable, you'll know if your systems are paying off without the guesswork. Try it today at camp.mba/Travis. That's camp.mba/Travis.